Hi everyone, thank you for joining the Fight with Teddy Atlas. I'm Teddy Atlas III, joined by International Boxing Hall of Famer, the pugilistic poet, my father and main man, Teddy Atlas. How you doing today, bud?
Well, my head's growing by the moment. Every time I hear you give these superlatives that is it a carryover from Easter, maybe? You just told me a little extra love. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Appreciate everybody out there joining us. Want to hope everybody had a good Easter. Everybody who celebrates that holiday, I hope you had a good Easter. And for the people that celebrate Passover, I hope that the same. That is a healthy, good celebration for everybody. And everybody out there, whatever your denomination of your belief are, your religion, whatever it is, or what you don't practice, whatever. But I hope everybody is well. I hope everybody is having a good, healthy celebration of life. Everybody. So let's do some boxing. I know my grandson out there is hopefully he didn't have a stomach ache because his papa sent him a pretty big basket of candy. The bigger the better. I wanted to make him happy. I wanted to get his attention. I don't see him enough. So I hope I didn't upset his mother by sending him a little bit too much.
Yeah, he got the biggest Easter basket I've ever seen in my life. I think a lot of kids will be thanking you as well because we are sharing it. He can't eat it all. And she might be upset when he heads to that dentist. We will find out soon. But we had a great Easter.
Send me the bill. Send me the bill. And I'm glad everything went good. And we have some fights to talk about. We got some previews to talk about coming up. So let's get to it.
Yeah, we had two cards from the UK, two separate cards from the UK, and we had a boxing card in California in the States. So we will start off first on Saturday from the UK, live on DAZN. That was Dalton Smith fighting Mathieu Germain. Dalton Smith, WBC ranked number one contender now at the 140-pound division. That's Alberto Puello's belt. He came into this fight a 15-1 favorite, and by the time it closed, he was a 50-1 favorite. Never really in doubt this fight. He was fully in control. He did drop Germain 3 times en route to winning a unanimous shutout decision. But not a ton of action. Germain was in survival mode. Credit to him for overcoming the knockdowns and seeing it to the distance. But Dalton Smith gets the win. He is now the number one contender, as just said, to fight Alberto Puello. Puello is going to be fighting Subriel Matias, which was announced this weekend. So he's going to have to wait that out before we find out. But I just want to see your thoughts, what you thought of Dalton Smith. He's proven to be that level at the English domestic level. Is he world-class level?
I don't know if he is yet. I mean, he looks good. I mean, he's been in a safe environment. He's been Eddie Hearn's done a magnificent job with him, developing him, building him, choosing his opponents. They've done they've carefully matched him, which is not unusual when you have somebody that you can build up and somebody where you have a powerful promoter behind them and they do their job. It's not a knock on him. Everybody does it. The guys, whether you see them on DAZN, whether you're seeing them on ESPN, no matter who the promoter is, if they have a promoter worth his salt, they all get built up. They all get carefully navigated for the most part. Look, the more I see how carefully navigated these guys are, the more respect I have. Well, no, I shouldn't say that because I couldn't have more respect. The fighters from the 80s and 70s and those fighters, forget about going way back when they fought everybody. But whether it was to De La Hoya's, to Sugar Ray Leonard's, Tommy Hearns, these guys, they came out of the amateurs with a good pedigree, just like the guys today. But they fought better fighters sooner. They got in there with better fighters. I remember De La Hoya fighting John Molina, and it wasn't that many fights into his career. John Molina was a hell of a solid fighter and an Olympian, or at least I think an Olympian. At least I think he won the world championships representing Puerto Rico in the amateurs. Point is that the more it reminds me of how these fighters that were the fighters of that day fought better fighters so much sooner than they do today. But look, Dalton Smith, it's that time now. His time is up. It's time to make that step up. So we will be finding out whether or not he is just a product of his environment, of a great matchmaking, great promoter, or if there's more to him. We'll see soon. I'm not sold on him. I'm not against him, but I'm not sold. To me, in some ways, he reminds me of that beautiful cake that comes out of the oven. I mean, he stands up, he looks pretty, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean, he looks like the prototypical fighter. Like if you had a postcard of a fighter, you'd put him on a postcard. Stands straight up, everything tucks up nice, and then the cake comes out of the oven the same way. Beautiful, standing up, nice, sturdy, and then you cut into it and you start to take a bite, and it might be missing just a couple things. Just a little something. I don't know. We haven't taken a bite into that cake yet. So I'm just wondering if that's the case, because he looks real the part, but he stands straight up. He gets hit with clean shots sometimes by a guy who wasn't really looking to engage much. You said it right. His opponent was looking from the most part. Look, second round, he gets dropped with a nice, clean left hook, nice, compact left hook. Actually, Smith gets hit a punch and then comes right back with a left hook, which is what you're supposed to do. And Germain didn't do what he was supposed to do. He posed. He didn't move his head. So he caught him a nice, short, compact left hook, dropped him, and he survived. It was towards the end of the round. He survived, and then he got on his bike. I don't know if that's what convinced him not to try to fight more to win, but Germain was fighting in spots, surviving. Not easy to look good against a guy like that. What I was a little concerned about with Dalton is that I thought he could have done more. I thought it got to a point where it was obvious that Germain wasn't there really to take chances, where if he would have closed the gap with a little more consistency, a little more vigor, just a little more commitment. He closed it in spots, and then he went back out. He didn't do what he could have done or should have done. I felt like with this opponent, maybe he should have got rid of him. Went to the body more, used the jab more, maybe jab to the chest more, stabilize the guy on the outside so he can't pot shot you. Close the gap and stay there. And get the job finished. I saw a lot of single shots with Dalton. Look, I'm not looking to knock one of the fighters from one of my favorite places in the world across the pond. No, please, guys, enjoy your crumpets today. Don't let Teddy Atlas throw a wrinkle into that. Not at all. I'm just saying that I still want to see more. I don't know if he's ready for that next step. Now, that next step, it's not a Mount Everest step. I mean, Perez, I think if he wins against Mathieu, either one of them will be a significant step for Smith. Perez, the one thing about him is he had a real tight fight in his last fight. He won a split decision. He can be a guy that sometimes is looking to counter. Sometimes he fought a counter punch in his last fight, and there was spots where Perez got outworked. That would make me feel good about if I had Smith, because Perez, not the busiest, most consistent guy offensively, but a good, solid fighter. And like I said, I think it was against Martin in his last fight where he won a split decision.
Sandor Martin.
Yeah, Martin's mostly a counterpuncher. So To have a close fight in there shows you Perello can be inconsistent offensively. That could bode well for Smith. I still think Perello's a step above Smith from what I've seen. And Mathieu, of course, coming off his one loss, which was a big upset loss in Puerto Rico. Real busy guy. We know you can hit Mathieu. And we know that Smith has some power. But Mathieu, what a game guy he is. I mean, that guy never stops coming. So, again, if you were asking me, am I buying or selling on stock for Dalton Smith right now, I'm not buying. I'm waiting. I'm telling my stockbroker, just wait a little while. Let me get more information on that stock. Let me get a little bit more on that. I'm not knocking him. It's a nice stock. It looks good.
Let me ask you this, to your point, though, to piggyback off of that, because I feel the same way and I agree with you. Germain was so much smaller. He looked like a lightweight in there to me. I thought, especially after knocking him down early on and then again later in the fight, you got to stop this guy to be that world-class guy. If he would have stopped him, would your thoughts be different?
No, because I look at what Germain is. I'm not just looking at the results. I'm looking at the results with what? I'm looking at the results that I think he should have stopped him, but I'm looking at the results with the quality of the guy he's in there with. I didn't think this guy was really a threat. 35 years old, a guy that's been around, I get it, but I didn't think it was, I didn't think that much of Germain where even if he stopped him, I would have said, oh, wow. It would have depended how he stopped him. If he got rid of him in the first 3 rounds, yeah, maybe then. Because then it would have answered some of the things that I didn't see. Being busier. Being a guy who put punches together instead of single shots. Being a guy that once he closes the gap, he stays there and gets more of the job done. I didn't see that. If he did that, then I would have seen that. I would have felt better, yeah, in that way. The final thing I'll say is he showed me he's not a finisher. You're either a finisher or you're not a finisher in this business. And there's guys, you don't need Teddy Atlas to tell you when you see a finisher. I just saw a finisher. Oh, my God. This guy is not that. That doesn't mean he can't become what they want him to become. He's got the best navigation you can have with Eddie Hearn and over there. And I'll leave it with this. If he does get the Perello fight, or, if Mathieu wins and he gets that fight, one thing that I think he has to get to go with that obviously would make his chances better. But I think with him in particular, it's important to fight over there. To fight there with the crowd. And I don't have to say the rest. You know why? Because if it's a competitive fight, maybe it goes his way. Maybe he's got a better shot of it going his way. If it's that kind of fight. I think that, and look, you can say that about a lot of people, that they're better off if they fight at home. But I think in particular, in this kind of scenario, with what I just laid out, it would help him.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful breakdown. And we will see what is next for Dalton Smith when he makes that jump up to that next level. Puello, guy, not easy to look good against. And Mathieu, you better bring your lunch. So either way, like you said, would be a step up, be interesting. So we will move on from the UK to California, from the 140-pounders to the 154-pounders. I thought by far the best fight of the weekend, Charles Conwell, was highly ranked coming in versus Jorge Perez. And Conwell winds up losing this match. He's going to fall in the rankings. I had never seen Perez. This was my first exposure to him. And I was pleasantly surprised. He did have the height and reach advantage. But besides trying to catch him at the end of the punch on the outside, he did some great work on the inside. I thought that was the big difference. I thought Conwell, the shorter man, shorter arms, would have to, make his hay on the inside. And credit to Perez for being able to take short steps inside, shorten his punches, brutal body shots, and even angles. He was maneuvering. He was crafty. In the end, I was curious to see, would the judges get it right? I thought they did. I agreed with the decision. He wins it by split decision. What'd you think of the fight? What'd you think of the decision?
Well, I'll start with the latter of your questions, the decision. He earned it. He earned that win. it would have been wrong. It was a close fight, close rounds, close enough, close competitive rounds, but it would have been an injustice not to give it to him. He earned it. He earned it. And Conwell fought good. Conwell, look, it was a competitive fight, well-matched, good matchmaking, really good matchmaking, well-matched fight. De La Hoya, Golden Boy, doesn't have a lot of good fortune and luck sometimes with guys when they sign them up. Like they sign him up and then they got him a couple fights. I don't know how many fights he's been with them, but they got him a few fights and then all of a sudden
I believe this was Conwell's 4th fight with Golden Boy.
It goes south. Now look, you could knock Golden Boy if you want and say, hey, you got to take better care of your prospects. You sign them up and then you put them in this kind of fight. Or you could say, hey, good, which I do. Hey, not good that he lost, but good for Golden Boy, having the attitude. They want to find out what they got. The only thing I would knock him is if he was on the doorstep, on the precipice of just in the foyer of waiting for a world title fight that he was going to be guaranteed that he was going to get. Then you don't take this kind of fight. Then you don't need to take this kind of fight. But if it's still within the lane of development, the realm of development, that it's a kind of fight that can make him a better fighter, that he needs to be a better fighter. And I think it will make him a better fighter. If it's that lane that you're looking at, that it's the kind of fight that will make him a better fighter, that he needs to get to where you want him to get to for it to be worthwhile for you and him, then I give him credit. Because sometimes you sign guys up and you're spending all that resources to give them very carefully hand-chosen opponents that you know they're going to go through. And then at the end, you invest all this resources. Al Heyman people have made that mistake. Then you invest those resources, and then all of a sudden you find out, oh my goodness, I thought I had something better. I thought I had better material. I wouldn't have put all that investment into him and time and everything else if I knew then what I know now. So find out when you're supposed to, not too soon, but find out. So I give Golden Boy credit for that they want to find out. I don't know if the matchmaking is a little shady, that it looks like they want to find out accidentally on purpose because they're not realizing what they're putting guys in with. I don't know that. But at the end of the day, I'm going to give them credit for saying, okay, they want to find out. They expect big things out of this guy. They want him to be able to handle a guy who's 32-4 in their mind. He's, a veteran guy, a crafty guy, no doubt about it. A guy who's a warhorse type guy, but a guy that in their mind, and they're not wrong, he's got to beat if he's going to be what they want him to be.
Or a guy that maybe they underestimate because he only fought twice in the United States. Did they not know him enough, with most of his fights being in Mexico?
Well, that's why I left the door open. What I was saying, that maybe the matchmaker wasn't quite up to speed on the guy. Maybe it was a mistake, or maybe it's one or the other. It's a mistake. I'm going to give him credit. I'm going to say, look, they're looking to find out, is it worth going down the road with this guy? And not in a bad way, not where they're throwing him to the wolves, but they're putting him in a fight that at the very least it's going to make him a better fighter. And it will make him a better fighter. At the end of the day, Conwell got an opportunity to find out where he needs to be better. He was the physically stronger guy. He's the shorter guy. Perez had all the attributes, all the physical assets to be the guy on the outside, to have the advantage. Taller, longer. He had all those advantages, and you expected him to use them on the outside, and he knew how to use them on the outside. Conwell, physically stronger, more, just a guy who's built, he's built more physical. He's built more of a brick house type guy rather than the long, rangy guy that Perez is. So Conwell wanted to get close. He wanted to put pressure. He puts pressure on guys. He wanted to wear them down. That's his game. get close, wear him down. And he knows how to fight. He moves his head well. Both of them were pretty good defensively. I give both credit. They knew what they were doing. They didn't get hit with everything you freaking threw at them. You know, you didn't close your eyes and just hit the guy. They weren't like Mickey Duff would say, one of those guys that get insulted if you miss them. You know, these guys were much better than that. Conwell moving his head, coming in. He could have used the jab a little more coming in. He used it pretty good. He went to the body, okay. Could have went to the body more. Perez surprised me. The tall, wiry guy who went to the body so much. Again, Conwell, what hurt Conwell and what I think gave the fight to Perez, where I agree with the judges, is that Conwell, when he got inside, he had no trouble getting in, bud, with the longer guy, with that long body. And he had the right idea. But when he got in, he wasn't consistent enough with his offense. He stalled. He was like a car that, it gets going on the highway, then it stalls out. You say, what the freak? What are you stalling out now for? I'm on the highway.
And to your point, those close rounds, I did think the activity of Perez was the difference.
Yeah, it was. I mean, and the judges saw it, and I'm glad they saw it the right way. Conwell got inside. He wasn't consistent. He should have been more. And why wasn't he? He smothered himself. He allowed himself to get tied up sometimes. He put his hands behind Perez in spots and initiated tie-ups. So he's got to be, if he's going to be that kind of fighter, if that's his MO, if that's his, style, then he's got to be more consistent at it. If he's the strong guy who's going to put pressure and break you down and get inside on, then when he gets inside, he's got to stay there and he's got to keep room to keep working. He's got to learn that. And this fight has to teach him that. Perez won the fight for one reason. He had the edge on the outside. You saw that right away. He's taller, he's longer. He had the edge on the outside when he wanted it. The first few rounds he wanted it. But then he outworked Conwell on the inside, the one place that he couldn't be the better guy. Conwell had to be the better guy on the inside. It turned out that Perez was more transitional. He was more dimensional. He had an edge on the outside, and then you wouldn't think it. He's tall, he's wiry. He'd say, he don't want to be inside with this physical guy who's going to break him down. He went inside and outworked the guy. Outworked him. Now, look, you can make an argument that Cromwell was throwing the hardest shots, landing the hardest shots, but let me tell you something. Yeah, he might have been a better puncher. He might have been a more solid puncher, but Perez was landing plenty of solid punches. And to your point, to the body, he was digging in. He was landing down. He was busier. He wasn't throwing maybe the quality type hard punches in spots that Conwell was, but Perez was outworking him and landing enough of the cleaner shots to win close rounds. He was doing the job Conwell should have been doing on the inside. He went inside and said, you like to be in here? Okay, I'm going to come in here with you. I'm going to come into your area, your geography, as I like to say. And you know what? I'm going to match you. And I'm going to better you. Anything you could do, I could do better. He kind of had that attitude. And he actually pulled it off. And that's why he won the fight. And I'm glad the judges saw it the way they needed to see it. Give him credit.
Yeah, and credit to Conwell. And he will be served from this. He fought with cuts on both of his eyes. And he closed strong, gritty, determined. I thought the last few rounds he was really coming on it and made it that closer gap. The fight came down to the final round on the scorecards. 115-113 two times and 115-113 the other way. Two of the three judges gave the last round to Perez. So that was the difference in the end.
I thought, to your point, the championship rounds, I'd say, let's say the 10th and 11th. I thought going into those rounds that Perez was ahead and that Cromwell, as you just said, needed a strong close. He needed a strong finish. And he did what he needed to do. He won the 10th, he won the 11th. I forget the 9th, I can't remember. But anyway, he won those last couple rounds and he tightened it up. And then it did come down to the final round. And Perez, where I thought he might have been getting tired, I thought he might have been getting worn down, and I think everyone thought that. Conwell thought that. It looked like he might have, the pressure was finally getting to him, the body work, the inside fight, all the stuff that Conwell depended on was starting to get to him. All of a sudden, Perez would find another gear. It's like he had an extra fuel tank. He would say, okay, I'll go over here to get some gas from here. And all of a sudden, and that's this. That is the mental part. And he dug down, and he pulled it out. When he needed to, he dug down, he found the energy, he found the punches, and that's why he won the fight, as you just said. So, good fight, and I give credit to Conwell, taking this fight, and I think it'll make him a better fighter. I think it'll help him in the areas that I just said. And Conwell's the kind of guy I'd watch every time he fights. I'd watch him every time. I like his style. I like his attitude, everything.
Yeah, I'm with you. I couldn't agree more with everything you said. And he credit to Perez, as you said, pulled it off. He pulled off the upset of the year probably so far. He entered this fight as a 12-1 underdog. And I was thinking, man, people could have made some money if we were live streaming this one. We will be back with our live streams next week. But round 7, Conwell minus 1,800 live. Couldn't believe it. I knew what you would be thinking and saying during that one.
Send it in. Send it in. It's worth it. It's worth it. I don't care. I would just said simply, and I know it's easier to say it after the fact. I get it, but I hope you trust me enough, my reputation. I am being honest. I would have said, look, even if you lose, it's worth the risk, It's kind of, that movie, another one with De Niro and them, The Heat. It was called Heat. That was a hell of a movie, Heat. I don't know if a lot of people saw that. That was with De Niro and Pacino. They were both together in that movie. And they looked at this one. It was a tough one. They were guys that took down big jobs. They were robbers and gangsters. And the guy says, "You sure you want this one? You sure? You got a detective who's on you guys. There's a lot of risk." He said the risk is worth the reward, and he took it. For me, that's kind of like the reward for Conwell. He will be a better fighter.
Yeah, no question. And the last thing I'll say, we covered this one very thoroughly, and I think enough has been said. But I will say this, that for Conwell, I laughed because some of the fans after the fight, guys take a lot of criticism when they lose for inactivity. Conwell, 4 fights this year, and now people are saying, well, too much activity. That's why he lost the fight. He was overworked. He fought too many fights this year.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't. You can't satisfy people. Don't try to. Don't try to figure them out. Don't try to get them in their head. I would ask those guys, and I'm not trying to knock anyone, but I have to say something. You gave it to me. I have to say something. Ask those guys who were saying, how many champions have they trained? How many champions have they managed? How many fights have they won themselves? How long was their career? How much money did they make in this business? How much success have they had in this business? Other than watching other fighters which is great. You're a fan. You should do that. But other than watching and having your own little opinion, okay, fine. But you know what? Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. But don't try to take that to the market and see how much you get for that. You ain't going to get a lot. Not in this market. Because you haven't, unless I'm wrong, I don't think there's too many of you that have been successful managing, training, or fighting in this business. If I'm wrong, I stand corrected. I'm going to get that my bookie or something. Give me a line on that, because I'll put a little play on that I'm probably not wrong.
Well, we will move on from that co-main event fight, and let's talk about the main event there in California on DAZN. We had the ladies, Gabriela Fundora versus Marilyn Badillo. Fundora, undisputed flyweight champion. This was her first defense of her undisputed belts. And just like her brother, genetics are unbelievable, right? I mean, tall, long, super wiry, rangy, trained by the father, and quite the performance. Had her way, very one-sided.
You don't have to spend the good thing about being a father in that family, you don't have to spend a lot of money on groceries. Your
Yeah,
food bill ain't real big. There's some families where the father's like, oh my God, I got to get a second job to feed these guys. Oh my God. Richie's laughing. His family's probably like that. Oh, how am I going? But this family, no, you're going to save some money on the food bill. Man,
yeah,
they are skinny.
yeah, no question. And I thought about you during this fight immediately. One of your great analogies of the kid trying to go up the hill being Badillo, and the other kid on top of the hill chucking rocks at you being Fundora. She got to give her credit, Badillo. She tried. She was trying to get super low and shoot a big shot and left hook up top, but whatever she tried, she was outgunned. And Fundora was using her range, shooting down shots. And she's like her brother, not afraid to give up her height and come forward and be fan friendly. What'd you think of Fundora and her performance?
Unlike her brother, very similar. But where she's better than her brother, although her brother in the last fight, not with a top, he didn't have anything great in front of him, to be honest. Game guy, but nothing what he's gonna have. He's gonna have tougher fights coming up. But in his last fight, he did do what I'm about to say. He did look better. But where she's better than him consistently is when she wants to fight tall on the outside, she does. And she can do it consistently. And then when she wants to press, which I think is almost part of the genetics of this family. I think it's part of the mental genetics. I think the father trains them to be this, to be these kind of fighters with this attitude to press, to get knockouts. They talked about that. I think he kind of like develops Terminators. To have this Terminator attitude. She's a Terminator. She's a sweet thing. She talks well. She really is. She looks like a really as nice a person as you could find. Sincerely. I mean, like she really is. It's not fake. But man, she's a Terminator. She is a guys, don't you go out on a date with her, be really a gentleman. I mean, you should always be a gentleman. Should always be. But really be extra because she don't play.
The nickname is perfect. Sweet Poison.
It is perfect. She is the consummate, not just fightable, but really Terminator, the warrior. Like she's got that attitude, and she said something that Customato used to say to me when I was had the responsibility of develop a guy named Mike Tyson. I remember Cus would say, how'd the training go? How'd the workout? How did they go in the gym? Whatever, with all the fighters. But then, of course, he would concentrate on him, being that he was going to be a heavyweight, the whole thing, could punch with either hand. That would kind of make you a little bit the favorite. You know what I mean? That would make you the favorite in the family. And it could hit you on top of the head, fracture your ankles. Yeah, that would make you the favorite in a family, in a boxing family. But Cus would say to me, and then when I would take him out to get fights, he would say his attitude needs to be always like, first let me explain this. I'll be the first to say I don't make a fighter look for a knockout because I might prepare him where he could get a knockout and we'd like to get it, and I think it's a good chance we can get it by doing certain things that I will set up as the fight plan to do in the gym. But I never put the pressure on him and say, I never say, we got to get knocked, because I don't know who I'm talking to. I know my fighter, but if he's not mature enough, if he's not disciplined enough, smart enough to understand that I don't mean to go out there and start looking for one punch at a time. I mean to continue doing the things you were trained to do. Do the things you were taught to do to get the knockout, but don't overly press for the knockout, because then you could get caught. You could get knocked out, because then it's like a baseball player up at the bat. You look for the home run, you strike out. But you look to make contact, you look to swing the bat the way you were taught to swing it, keep your eye on the ball and all the mechanics you were taught. you might get a home run. You got a good chance of getting a home run if you're that kind of hitter. Same thing with a fighter. I don't want to press him and say, okay, you got to go get a knockout. And then, again, the chance that maybe he gets over anxious, maybe he loads up a little bit. I will say, do the things we taught you to do. Do the things we trained to do. Do them consistently. A mix of offense and defense. Press behind the jab. Bring your feet. Give a feint once in a while. Don't walk into anything. But if you do those things and you see you get to, continue to press. And you'll wind up getting to where you want to get to without me having to use the word knockout. Cuss was more definitive. Cuss was more aggressive with that with me. Cuss would say, and Fundora reminded me of that, and she basically said it. Cuss would say, let him go after him full force one round. Go after him, do everything to try to get him out of there. Everything, the right way. That's my job. He would say to me, that's your job, to make sure he does it the right way. But his attitude should be, I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. And then the bell rings, okay, same attitude the next round. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him this round. Bell rings, you don't get him, same attitude the next round, same attitude the next. In other words, every round. If I don't get him this round, I'll get him the next round. If I don't get him that, I'll get him the next round. That is her attitude. And she said as much. She said, my father trains us. We train to get the knockout. If actually she used the same verbiage that Cuz had used. If I don't get him that round, I'll get him the next round. The thing that she does, and she did really well, and like I said, her brother did it the last fight, but he doesn't always. When she decides to press, when she decides after a round or two, when she decides to come forward and reads the tea leaves, she reads the landscape, she reads the roadmap. Okay, time to go. It's time now to start pressing more. She still keeps. See, you said one thing I disagree with. You said she does give up her height like her brother. To me, no. Because even when and I get why you say it, bud, you're not wrong. But when she presses the right way for a tall person. She presses behind the jab with enough range, enough separation where the fighter, her opponent never gets that close to her. Where she keeps the opponent at the end of her punches, where she gets full extension on her punches. In other words, she decides, okay, I'm gonna come forward. I'm gonna go into that geography now, the close geography, where it looks like I'm gonna give up my height. So she does. But in reality, she's doing it in a way technically behind the jab where she's always keeping the opponent at a range where she can hit the opponent with her long arms and the opponent can't hit her. So even when she comes forward aggressively, she still keeps the advantage of being tall. Her brother did that in his last fight, but he doesn't do it because she is magnificent at it. I love this fighter. I love the way she approaches the game, the way she attacks the game, the way she handles herself outside and inside, the way she's an ambassador for the game, for the sport. She is magnificent. She's trained magnificently. She is the Terminator. I mean, wow. You can't say that about too many fighters, and you don't think you're going to be saying it about too many female fighters, to be honest, because there's not as many of them. That's why, not because a woman couldn't have those attributes, but there's not as many. But she looks so good in every area. She wants to control the outside. Go ahead. Make the opponent walk through a bad neighborhood and mug them. She does that beautifully. But then she says, you know what? I want to go into her neighborhood. I want to go into her neighborhood and mug her in her neighborhood. I don't want her to come into my neighborhood to get mugged. I'll go into her neighborhood. And she goes in the right way. Yeah, she's terrific. And she's built like a puncher. You know, like a Tommy Hearns, like a Bob Foster, like an Alexis Arguello, like a Carlos Zarate. Skinny, tall, wide, like a brother. Tall, wiry, where they get leverage. They get leverage on those punches, torque on those punches. Anyway, Terrific. She's great. Anytime she fights, I'll watch her. I just hope that she's so light. I don't know, like her frame, she could go up, but how far can she go up as far as and put a little bulk, where she's not going to get pushed around with the bigger women on the, when she moves up. She won't get physically, handled in a way where they would take advantage of that. That would be my only thought, my only concern. But and my other concern is, as much as I love her, is there enough fights out there that are worthy to see her in? I don't want to see her in blowouts. Even though she makes it a blowout, I give her credit for that. Don't knock her for that. I'm not taking away that she makes it a blowout. But I'm just saying, I want to see her. I don't know if there's enough good women fighters in those weight classes of hers to really bring the best out of her, to make me want to say, oh, I got to watch this fight again. I'll watch her anyway. The last thing I want to add is that you touched on Badillo. She tried her best. She was trying her best. At the end, she gave up. She gave up. She told the ref she didn't want to go on. But her problem was she had half the right idea to move her head, but she didn't move her feet. She didn't move her feet to close the gap. She moved her head and avoided some shots early, but didn't close the gap with her feet. So she wasn't close enough to catch Fundora after moving her head.
Yeah, I'm with you. I can't wait to watch her fight again. We'll see how long she's able to stay at that flyweight 112-pound limit. And she is, at 23 years old, the youngest undisputed world champion ever, men's or woman. So quite the accomplishment. Can't wait to see what the future has in store for her. And before we move on to our next fight, I just want to take a quick pause, give a thank you to today's sponsor, Athletic Greens, the all-in-one daily drink to support better health and peak performance. These guys spent 10 years with top nutritionists and doctors to create this formula. It's made from 75 whole food sourced ingredients, has vitamins, minerals, prebiotics, probiotics, and antioxidants. This is like an insurance policy for your body's health and immunity. Simply visit athleticgreens.com/atlas to claim the special offer of 10 free travel packs with your first purchase. All right, so with that being said, we will move on to Easter Sunday's main event, back to the UK. We had the rematch. Liam Cameron and Benn Whittaker. Benn Whittaker, the former silver Olympian medalist in 2020. Both guys from the UK. Big fight over there in the UK. And large part, because of the controversy of the first fight. Both guys tumbled out of the ring. Whittaker said he was unable to continue. And 6 months later, we were able to get the rematch. This time around, Whittaker makes some changes, brings Andy Lee in as his new trainer in his corner, and looked very impressive, didn't waste any time. In the second round, he catches Whittaker, winds up getting the stoppage. Now, I said in the last fight, I thought about you with analogies. I was thinking about you again watching this fight. I always think about you watching the fights, but what you talk about sometimes, the punch not to throw, right? What's the punch? What is the best punch to throw? The one you don't throw. You always talk about how a jab, how important it is, but how dangerous of a punch it is, because it could get you in trouble if not used the right way. He threw a slow, lazy jab where he pushed it in range, and he got caught with a right hand over the top, wasn't able to recover. In the end, second round stoppage by Benn Whittaker. I just want to ask you, obviously, your thoughts on this rematch of Benn Whittaker, but also on the stoppage. Some people out there thought it was a little premature. What did you think of the stoppage?
First of all, I'll take it in my order that I think I need to take it in. To your point, I always say it. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. When you see a guy get hurt, when you see a fighter get knocked out, when you see a big punch land, 99% of the time you can count on it. I'll keep saying it till I turn blue in the face. It's because of a defensive flaw, because of a fundamental technical flaw by the opponent. That they did something wrong to lead. The punch didn't just land. They did something wrong to lead. They stepped back with their hands down. I remember the great body snatcher Mike McCollum. He knocked out Donald Curry with that left hook when Curry stepped back. He had a habit of stepping back from too close with his hands out. He gets hit with a left hook. The fight's over. The flaws are what they are. There's like a half dozen of them. I can name them. I can make a list. I can make a book out of things not to do if you want to be a champion. And it would be a handful of things. Not moving your head after you punch. Covering too slow, like you said, after a jab. Throwing the jab from too close where he's close enough to hit you with right hand. In this case, it was what you said it was. I'm going to take it a little further, bud. It wasn't just that he was throwing a jab. You know what it really was if you watch the replay? And we're going to get it because our man Benn is the best. Ben Garcia is the best in the business, and he will get that up there for us. What he was starting in his mind, when you got in your mind to do something, you never get it done. Yeah, you're starting to do something, but something happens. You don't get it done. He wanted to throw a left hook. Never. How many times did you hear me say, and you've been in the gym with me too, never lead. I don't let my fighters lead with left hooks in front. I'll jump in the ring now in the middle of sparring and say, you can't do that. And you got to learn now. I'm not going to let it go because you don't learn now. You're going to do it somewhere down the road, and you're going to pay a real price, even if you didn't pay just now. You never lead with a left hook. Simple. Even I was there in the classroom when they taught that a straight line beats a round line. Straight beats round. Not complicated. When you lead with a left hook in front from the wrong place, the wrong range, you leave a hole for right hand, a straight right hand to get in there. He was starting, I know it looked like a jab. He was starting to throw a left hook. It never got there. As he was starting to throw it, the right hand got there first. And that's why he got hurt so bad. He never saw the punch. In his mind, if you ask him, what's the last thing you remember? I was going to land a left hook. I was going to throw a left hook. I don't know what happened after that. Then he gets hurt. Now to the rest of what we want to deal with and what the fans are asking about as far as the fight goes. I thought it was a quick stoppage. But I thought it was... I thought it didn't matter. I thought that the result was going to be the same. Maybe the guy maybe you take a chance he gets hurt, but I don't think that it changed the result or the outcome of what it was going to be. But yes, I thought it was a quick stoppage. I thought they could have waited a lot. But I also thought it was very smart and well prepared and showed me the preparation of Whittaker and the help of his new trainer, Andy Lee, where once he heard him, one thing that Cameron was doing, he had the earmuffs on. He was keeping his hands on peekaboo, where the clean punches were not really available where you normally want them, in front, because the gloves were there in front. Where the clean punches, the openings were available with that peekaboo there, was behind the glove. And that's where he aimed them. Once he heard him, he realized, and I think it was preparation from his trainer, that they did their work. They did what you're supposed to do as a fighter and trainer. They looked at tape. They went in there with a game plan. They went in there understanding what their opponent did, his strengths, his flaws. They knew that he would cover up. So if you get him hurt, aim behind. And that's exactly, he wasted no time. And I give Whittaker and Andy Lee great credit for that. I recognized that right away. And I said, wow, job well done. Well prepared. He started throwing. If he would have threw maybe in the front, it would have been blocked. But instead, he threw it around the glove and they started to land. It was just a matter of how many more punches. I mean, yeah, I'll say it again. I thought he could have waited a little bit, the ref, no doubt about it. But at the same time, he got it right. You could also say, hey, he saved him from possibly getting hurt. And then you could argue, the fans could say, but Teddy, we've seen guys come back, where if the referee would have stopped it there, you wouldn't have had that great comeback. I hear you. I've seen those fights. I've been there. But I don't think this was one of them. okay? Because I think from the beginning it was meant for Whittaker. He was prepared mentally, physically, technically. It was his night. Cameron was not the guy he was in Saudi. Whittaker was not the guy he was in Saudi. Whittaker was better prepared, more focused, whatever you want to call it. But he was ready to behave and fight the way he needed to as a fighter who's supposed to have a future. Cameron that night was ready to behave and fight like a guy who was going to doubt that guy was what they were building him up to be and was not going to let him have that career. He fought that way. Like, this guy hasn't been proven yet. This guy hasn't been tested yet. This guy hasn't been through what I've been through yet. I'm going to test him tonight. I'm going to think that he's not ready for a veteran like me. I'm going to find out if he has those intangibles tonight. And on that night, Cameron was ready to fight that fight and be that guy. Whittaker was not ready to be the guy that he was the other night, to be the guy that truly was going to be the real deal. He might have taken him for granted. I don't know what it was. I know what I've been in the business 50 years. He was not what he was in Saudi. He was the guy that he had to be here because he had been forewarned that you can't take a guy like this for granted because his record was 23-6-1 or whatever it was. Somewhere in that area going in, I don't know. But where he had 6 losses or whatever it was.
23-6-1.
Yeah, that you can't take him for granted. And again, the difference was Cameron said, no, I've seen this movie before. Where a guy who's the star, who's the pretty boy, who's the flash in the pan, he's being built up. They put him in with a trial horse like me, and it's supposed to be his coming out party. No, I'm throwing a wrench into those works because I know I have the experience to do it. That was the difference. That was the difference in the fight. Cameron from the beginning did not look ready. He was too, and some people will say, well, Teddy, that's what he is. But he was better the first time. And look, Whittaker was better here. I said it already. But Cameron, he covered up. All he did was walk forward. He didn't come in behind the jab. He didn't move his head. He just put, like I like to say, he put the earmuffs on and he did the peekaboo. But the peekaboo, you're supposed to move your head. He didn't move his head. He just walked straight in. He did the peek, but he didn't do the boo. That's not good. And he walked in. He was getting hit with the jab. He wasn't using his jab enough to keep Whittaker defensive minded with something coming back at him. He was coming in a very slow. His feet was slow. His closing was slow. He was very, very one-dimensional, as I said. And that wasn't going to get it done. That immediately Whittaker recognized, no, I'm going to be able to do what I want to do. Set the table with my jab, and then at the right time, I eat with the right hand. And he did. I'll finish with this, bud. The final thing to me is this. I think this fight was over before it started. I know people... I have a different thought on things. I know people are going to say, some of them are going to think maybe this or that or think I'm crazy. But I said it in the preview of the fight last week. I think that there's certain fighters in their career. I think Muhammad Ali was one. I'm not putting Whittaker in that class. I think it happened to Bernard Hopkins on his way up earlier in his career. I think it's happened to several fighters. Certain fighters are chosen. They're chosen by a destiny, by a fate, their talent, their hard work, their dreams, all of that. But it's like it's in their destiny to get there. And I've seen it. I've seen fights where Ali against Cooper, where he gets caught a left hook and he's hurt. He gets dropped. He gets up. He's hurt. He goes back to his corner. I don't know if he's going to be able to recover in time with 1 minute. But what happens? Suddenly, out of nowhere, look, I know he had a great cornerman. Angelo Dundee, one of the greatest cornermen of all time. God bless him. God rest his soul. But all of a sudden, there's a little tiny rip in the glove. Someone else wouldn't have noticed it. It never would have been noticed. Wouldn't have been. It wasn't big. Nobody knows. The ref didn't notice the fight. Nobody would have noticed it. But all of a sudden, Angelo says, no, we got a rip in the glove. Now, they could have said, nah, it's not that bad. And the fight could have went on. But they said, okay, they changed gloves. By the time they changed the gloves, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, Ali is recovered fully, goes out there, and what happens? He wins the fight. He busts up Henry, who was prone to getting cut. Good left hook, but you could hit him, and he was very prone to getting cut. And then Ali goes on to be Ali. If he loses that fight, he don't go on to be Ali. I think it was in his destiny. There's certain guys that was meant to be. Then the next fight he fights Cooper, he wins easy. So here's a fight where he's going to get beat. Whittaker's going to get beat that night. There's no doubt in my mind. I don't know whether or not he didn't want to get up. There's both arguments that when he went out of the ring that he wasn't as hurt as he said. He could have got back. Whatever it was, he recognized it wasn't his night. Whatever. But destiny shined on him that night. He did get a way out of a fight that I don't think he was going to win that night. But he got out of it. He got a chance. Destiny, fate, whatever. He got a chance to get another shot at it on a night that he would be better, on a night that would be his night. And what's he do? He wins easy. I've seen this before. I know people want from Teddy Atlas more tangible stuff. It's about he didn't move his head. He timed him. I understand all that. But sometimes it's about other stuff too. Call it spiritual, call it whatever you want to call it. Call it destiny. Chosen. I don't know where this guy Whittaker's going. I don't know how much for you. I think he's with the right guy with Andy. I think it's only going to better him. I think he's on the right track now, but I do think that there was more at play. I'm sorry. Than just he got lucky and he got out of that last fight. Yeah, he got lucky because I'll say it again. I think that night Whittaker was going to beat him. I mean, that Cameron was going to beat him that night. But he got out of it. Whether it was the hand of destiny or was him just falling out of the ring and getting lucky. Whatever it was what it was meant to be for this kid at this point in his life. Now I am interested in this kid because that's how I feel. I want to see now what's in his future. I want to see, is he one of those guys like I described where Ali went on to be? Of course, there's only one Ali, but Bernard went on to be what he went on to be and, again, go down the road.
Yeah, we have seen this before. And like you said, with Bernard Hopkins versus Robert Allen, the first fight, he did fall out of the ring. He did not continue. Fight wound up being a no contest. Gets some time, comes back for the rematch, gets the knockout. So a great example with the Ali one as well. I blame the management a little bit, or give credit for Whittaker's management and corner, right? Tim Tszyu, that fight, maybe he should have went back home, went back to the drawing board, came back. He'd still have his O. He'd still be undefeated instead of losing his belt or the opportunity to win the belt versus Fundora with the bad cut.
That's a good point. The corner, look, a trainer's very important in the gym, teaching, very important, preparation, fight plan, and then very important, like I said about Angelo Dundee. One of the great, I mean, he he was involved with one of the greatest fighters of all time. It was a couple of them, Sugar Ray Leonard too. A lot of good fighters he was involved with. A lot of good. His brother Chris Dundee was the big promoter down in Miami. He had all the big fights. He had all the big fighters. And he allowed Angelo to serve his apprenticeship while he was doing all these promotions and get an opportunity to work with these great fighters. And Angelo made the best of it and became one of the great cut men of all time and one of the great cornermen of all time. But again, if Muhammad Ali doesn't have Angelo Dundee in his corner at that time to be clear-minded, with all the chaos going on, his fighter, undefeated fighter, just getting dropped, coming back to the corner, staggering. If he didn't have the wherewithal, the mind to not panic and to think clearly the way he did, it could have been a whole different story. We wouldn't be talking the way we're talking about Muhammad Ali right now. So yeah, it's important the trainer's important, the corner's important to be able. Sometimes you don't need them. There's times when you say, I don't even know who worked the corner. I didn't even notice them. But there are times, and when those times do come, you are very grateful you have one of them in your corner at the right time.
Yeah, that's right. And that was a thorough breakdown. The last thing I will add on this is you did nail it on the preview leading up. I asked you your opinion, who you thought would win in this one, and you really did all over it. And this stoppage, which some people think was premature, kind of leads up more to exactly what you were saying. You said this go around, usually the guy who's on the side of the promoter, right, who's more lucrative, the more charismatic guy moves forward. And that's exactly what happened in this one. So that was a great breakdown. That's all of the fights for this past weekend. Before we do sign off, we do want to preview and let you guys get Teddy's thoughts on some upcoming bouts. So the first one is next week, April 26th from the UK. Huge fight. The sons of Eubank versus Benn. We are going to live stream that fight as well on our YouTube channel. We'll put up a post and we'll remind everybody so you could join in and listen to Teddy's commentary. But before you give us a preview of the sons fighting, I just want you to touch on the history. The fathers fought twice, most recently 1993, which was a draw. If you could just talk about the history between the two, the bad blood, and what makes this such a huge fight in the UK, where the interest in the United States isn't quite to that level.
No, but that's nothing new. The UK is a special place. It really is. They got the greatest fans in the world. They have the fans. They're more connected to boxing with their history than any other fans. They go back further. It's just a simple fact. They go back further in the sport of boxing than any other country, than any other, people. So they back their fighters, and you don't have a lot. You don't have a lot of distraction over there where I used to joke with my brothers and sisters over there that I loved them over there, and joke with across the pond and say, you don't have Tiger Woods, you don't have Tom Brady, you don't have LeBron James, you don't have Michael Jordan, you don't have all these other sports and celebrity great athletes and stars and to take away, to distract. You have boxing. You got soccer, of course. You got golf. You got darts. You got little snooker. Snooker, that's different. But, you don't have NFL. I mean, I know they go over there now, but you're not locked into the NFL, to Major League Baseball, to basketball, to the degree that we are here. So you can build a star better and easier, and they do. And the fans can connect with the fighters and their personality because you can promote them because you don't have the competition of all these other things going on. So you can promote them in a way where the fans start to know them and feel like they know them. That's what made so many fights in England so big and bigger than they would be here. That's what made him so big. The people knew Benn. They knew Eubank. They knew their styles. They knew that. Plus, Eubank was a brilliant promoter. He knew how to promote. Benn was good too, but Eubank he was like the alley to the Frazier. He knew how to promote. He knew how to do certain things to make that fight as big as it could be. And it created animosity between the two because they had different personalities, different fighting styles, but also different people styles. Again, just different personalities. And the conflict of those personalities made for great theater and made for great news because, again, the promoters knew how to promote. They knew that they had the audience there, the attention of the audience there. They had a captive audience. They weren't being distracted by all these other things we have here. And it became a huge fight. And they fought twice. And the first time, Eubank won by, I think, 9th round knockout. And then the second time, it was a draw, I believe. And so they created this history. And now the sons are following. They're smart. And the funny thing about this, the sons are smart enough to, you could say, they're getting a paycheck from it. You could say that. You could say, they're following their father's history and their father's reputations and what the fathers did, piggybacking off it to make money. What's wrong with that? There's still fighters. Both of these guys have had careers, significant careers. One of them's undefeated. The other one's got 3 losses. Eubank, he's been in there with good fighters. They've had significant careers. They've been around. Yeah, take advantage of this history. Make it a huge fight. Would it be over here? No. But it is for the reasons I said over there. It's huge, huge. And the funny thing about it that I find really interesting is that, like their fathers, they kind of stack up very similarly. Personalities, fighting style. Eubank is the promoter in this one more so than Benn. Benn's, again, doing his part to also be there to promote it and make it a big fight. But it's really Eubank taking the lead, just like the father took the lead as the promoter in their fights. And the styles of the two fighters. Eubank, in this fight, he has to fight on the outside. He's got to win. Yeah, he's the naturally bigger guy. Put that aside for me. He's got to fight on the outside. He's the guy who wants to box. He's the guy who wants to catch Benn coming in. Same thing as the fathers. Chris Eubank wanted to box, very physically strong, good puncher. Benn was a good puncher, both of them. Eubank wanted to box on the outside and catch Benn coming in. He wanted to own the territory on the outside. Benn wanted to get inside and do his work. Same thing, same setup here. Exactly. I find it really interesting when you start breaking it down.
All right, you just talked about Chris Eubank Sr. and Nigel Benn, the fathers. Before we get into your preview and your thoughts of the matchup coming up April 26th of their sons fighting, I saw recently, and I want to ask you your opinion and provide some clarity to this, an interview on a podcast that's going around on social media where Chris Eubank Sr. said that he had an incident and altercation with you many years ago in the 1980s.
One for Teddy Atlas. Teddy Atlas, I said to him, because it was his fighter I fought, and I said, this guy he's much heavier than me. I said, this is not fair what you did. He said, listen, you lost a fight, just leave it. Okay? I said, no, I didn't. I said, you've cheated me. Okay? Right. Teddy Atlas, I had a fight with him. Mike Tyson, you can check this. Mike would have seen that. Now listen to this. He bit my ear.
Huh? Look at that. You see how
Teddy Atlas bit my ear in a physical fight I had with him after this first loss I had.
Wow.
And that would be nice because I love looking at this guy because he's a real kind of I don't want because I'm not being derogatory about him, but
he's a character.
Yes, but he's a rough. I love dogs, okay? But he looks like a rough dog. He talks like a rough dog.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
understand? He's old school. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So
Again, something that you've never talked about publicly, it's never been heard of, but he put it out there, and since he did, I just wanted you to be able to have a chance and piggyback off of it. But if you could just touch on that altercation, he said that you were a rugged, tough man. What was he talking about? And just for the viewers out there, since he put it out there, what did happen?
No animosity at all. I have nothing but respect for Chris Eubank, both of them, but for in particular right now, Chris Eubank Sr. I have respect for the man he is, the fighter he became. This is a guy who, and I have to say this as long as I'm going to touch on it, this is a guy who, he went to America to get, the little bit I know, to get amateur fights, to get better training, to get training that he thought would help him as an amateur. And then he got that, he fought amateur, and then he went back to England, and he was smart. He had a plan. He had an idea. He really did. You got to give people like that credit. He had a plan for his life, and he had the discipline to enact that plan, and the creativity to see it, to visualize it. And it was to be a world champion fighter, but also to be a world champion promoter. To go over to England where he knew that over there they don't have as, it's not as crowded as it is here with fighters and with attention to the fighters to get on TV here, to be a star here. You got to practically be like, a Mike Tyson. I'm exaggerating, but I'm just making a point. But over there, they were more thirsty for not just for athletes and for champions, but for champions they could identify with, for champions that they could get excited about. And he became that guy. He became, one of those guys where he created a niche for himself, more than a niche. He created a career. He was undefeated. He was very strong, good puncher, good fighter. He knew exactly what he wanted to be, outside the ring and inside. As a businessman, as a guy that was successful, where he could take care of his family, where it was going to pay off for him, where it was going to be smart business, not just doing it only just to be a fighter. But no, I'm going to do it to make money, to take care of my family, and to be a champion, and to be recognized. And where being recognized in that way will pay dividends for me in the way I want it to, as being a star. And the discipline was in the ring too. He had the discipline outside to do that, and in the ring he had the discipline to fight the exact right way he needed to for his abilities. Strong, physically strong, fight on the outside, look to let other guys take chances, try to counter them, try to catch them on the way in, try to be as productive a boxer as he could be. Efficient, effective, and dangerous. Because he was powerful. And if he made you take chances, he had a chance to catch you on the way in. What I just described really deserves really great credit that he planned that way. Part of his plan early in his life was he was in New York. I guess he was getting amateur fights. He happened to be in the Bronx. If my memory serves me correct, it's over 40 years ago. I forgot about it until you brought it up that he talked about it. And I would only talk about it in a respectful way because I have respect for him. We were both different people, younger, a lot younger. Again, I think it was 43 years ago now that you say it. And we're in the Bronx. They had fights. They had smokers in the Bronx. Nelson Cuevas used to run the fights there at the Apollo. I used to take my amateurs there. When I was up in Catskill, I would take Mike Tyson. I would take all my team there to get experience, to get fights. Because after you worked hard with them to be a fighter, and you in the gym, now you had to go get fights. You had to get experience. And there wasn't a lot of that upstate. So I took him down to the Bronx where every week you had smokers. And like I said, Nelson Cuevas at the Apollo on Westchester Avenue, they had fights. And we made the fights. And now I left Catskill. I had left, I don't know if I was still in Catskill or not. I think I had left Catskill. I know he had mentioned that Tyson was there. I'm not sure Tyson was there. I'm sure that he's being honest, that that's his recollection. But I don't know, because when I went there when Tyson was around. I brought all my amateurs from Catskill. But then when I left Catskill and I walked away from there, I began training fighters when I came down to New York in Gleason's gym in Manhattan. And when I was developing amateurs, just like I did up in Catskill, I needed a place to get experience. Where did I take them? I took my new stable of fighters, this new venture I was doing with new kids down in New York. I would take them to the Apollo and other places that were available to get experience. I think, again, it's a long time ago, God, I think that I had a fighter named Jose Ortiz, I believe. He was a good kid. I think I had a fighter, I don't know if that was his name, or anyway, Jose. I had a fighter that was like a junior middleweight, middleweight, somewhere around there. And I believe they fought. Again, it's a long time ago. The only thing that revisited my memory was when you showed me that tape that Chris talked about that moment. Then I started remembering what I can remember. What I remember that differs with him a little bit, and again, I'm sure it's his memory. I don't know if I still was in Catskill at that time and I had Tyson, or I was with a different group of fighters I was developing, like I said, down here in Gleason's, continuing my life as a trainer, having left Catskill. And I had this kid, Jose, there. Whatever it was, I had a fighter matched to fight Chris. I don't remember much about it. They fought, I guess. We won the fight. And there was an altercation, little disagreement in the locker room after the fight. Look, Chris is what he is. He's a proud man. I'm kind of proud too. And he's a proud man. He was a young fighter. He had, and he felt he lost the fight. Obviously, he expected to win. Obviously, that bothered him. It should bother him. That's why he became a world champ. It showed right there that he had the makings of a world champ, because it did bother him. Because he was competitive. He didn't want to lose. And if it didn't bother him, he probably wouldn't have became what he became. So he came back in the locker room and I guess he addressed me. I guess he accused me of saying that my fighter was heavier than his. But really, we had a scale. We're up near the L's where the trains came back. They shook the whole place. We were in a tough area in the South Bronx. We didn't have no fancy scales. But you had a bathroom scale. And the bathroom scale, they got on it. He wouldn't have gotten in the ring if he didn't get on the scale. So whatever the scale said, I don't know how I would have done anything to, fraudulate that or fix that or cheat. But again, he believes it that way, then I can only say I don't remember it that way. I don't remember a lot about it other than that me and him get into a little, tassel. Because he was proud. He was saying I cheated, I guess, basically, or that your fighter was too heavy. And I guess I was trying to explain to him, like, how could he be too heavy if you got on the scale and he got on the scale? What's the matter? Maybe I was a wise guy. What's the matter? You can't read the numbers? You couldn't see whatever. When you get into that spot, he's proud. I'm not going to let him you know, intimidate me or bulldoze me or get away. So we got into what sometimes people get into. We got into a little bit of a skirmish. And I did hear on the video, though, I got to, as long as we're talking about it, because again, I forgot, I didn't remember this, but he did say, and he was very gentlemanly. He's a gentleman. He wasn't a gentleman at that moment, but he was always a gentleman. He conducts himself like a gentleman. I have respect for him, obviously, as you could tell, what he made himself. But in the way he conducts himself now. But he mentioned to the people who were doing the interview that I bit him. I bit his ear. I don't remember that. You know, I hope he has a full ear. I would feel terrible to find out that, you know, because if I saw him, I would give him a hug and say, hey, Chris, because I've seen him after. I would give him a hug. But now I'd probably hug and look and see, you know, did I really do that? Did I do that? I don't, listen, I'm joking with the situation. I thank God it didn't turn out to be serious, right? 43 years later, we can do that, right? We can do that as human beings that have gotten to the right place in life now, that are better, that are smarter, that are more mature now. I was doing what I thought I had to do, defending my fighter. He was doing what he had to do, defending himself and his pride. I get it. I understand. I respect it. But Chris, if you ever hear this, I hope I didn't bite your ear. I don't remember that. If I did, hope it was just a very, very quick little, you know, nibble, kind of like my grandkids do to me. I hope it wasn't anything significant.
And he did, as you did, respectfully tell the story. You could tell, like you said, he is a gentleman. And there's a reason why he feels such a way right now towards his son and the disrespect he showed towards the other side, and why he's not going to work his corner going into that one. So with that being said, we'll get into the Suns now and talk about the main event coming up Saturday, April 26th.
My preview of this fight is going to, and then you jump in and take me wherever you want, bud. But my preview of this fight is the same as it would have been for the fathers. How unusual is that? Really? You can't make that up. The Eubank, and maybe it's because the influence of the fathers, watching them in the gym, influencing them in the gym to fight the style similar to them. Yes, very much so. Maybe that's it. But whatever it is strikingly similar. My preview, Eubank will be on the outside. He's a bigger guy. He's a natural big. He's going to look to catch the smaller man coming in. Benn is going to have the burden, like his father, of bringing the fight to Eubank. He's going to have the burden of that and the risk of that on his shoulders, where he's going to have to take more chances. He's naturally more of an offensively aggressive fighter like Benn. He hasn't learned how to lose yet. He hasn't been real active in the last few years. One fight every year, maybe something like that. Hasn't been real active. I would like it better if he was a little more active, but he's the younger man. He's got more of a prototypical pro style that most fans find fan-friendly and find it easier to kind of embrace and wrap their heads around. He's going to look to get to you. He's going to go to the body. He's a good offensive fighter. He's going to look to get in close. He's going to look to put punches together. He's going to look to bring the fight. He's going to look to be the offensive force. And again, he's got a guy who's bigger, who's longer, whose style, whose temperament is to fight a fight on the outside, take less risk, try to make you take the risk, make you pay for that. So it should be, with the contrasting styles, it should be really, really interesting. So you got Benn, the smaller man, and then there's a hydration clause. We got to get into that because he is too small. He was a welterweight that he fought a few fights at junior middleweight. But Eubank's been a middleweight and super middleweight most of his career. So he is the guy who's bigger. I see the fight as Benn having to get close without taking damage. So it's going to be up to him and his trainers that they came up with the right plan in the gym. Feints, draw the punches, the counters out of Eubank before you walk into them. Knock on the front door, come in the side door, but not be what Eubank wants you to be. Predictable, coming in the front door where he can counter the crap out of you and catch you with the biggest shots. For me, that's the preview. He's got to be able to be aggressive in an effective, efficient way without being recklessly aggressive. That's it. Put a bow on it. For Eubank, he's got to be able to control the outside and make Benn try to get to him. And again, one of my favorite cliches, mug him when he goes through a bad neighborhood. Make him go through a bad neighborhood to get to him and catch him. Catch him with an uppercut, catch him with a straight right hand, but catch him and do damage. Here's how I think it's going to play out. I don't know how pretty it's going to be. Because Benn will look to get close. He's going to have to be really disciplined with his fight plan, his training, where when he gets close, he doesn't get tied up. The referee's going to be important. That it's got to be a referee for Benn. It's got to be, and for Hearn, it's got to be a referee that allows you to fight inside. If he's breaking you every bit, Eubank's going to have the edge. See, I'm going to go deep into this. I'm going to give you everything to put your couple of shekels. We call them shekels or over there. Shekels or actually put a few quid, right? My brothers and sisters, bet responsibly, not recklessly. But a couple quid. Where are you going to put a couple quid? Well, you're going to, again, you better have the right referee if you want Benn that's going to allow him to fight on the inside. If you have Eubank, you want a referee that's going to break him every time they get in close. Because Eubank wants to have distance and range to do his damage. Benn must be prepared to move his feet back, give himself room, not get smothered. And again, it takes two to tango to tie someone up. You don't get tied up just because you get tied up. You allow the guy to tie you up. You put your hands where he can tie you up. You get too close where he can grab you. It's going to be up to Benn to have prepared where he does not make it easy for Eubank to tie him up on the inside. He don't cooperate with him. And for Eubank, he's not afraid to tie guys up. That's why I'm saying it could get a little where it's not the prettiest fight. Because Eubank, he gets off on the outside, you get close, he'll tie you up. He has no qualms, no problems with people booing. He's got thick skin with that stuff. He got no problem if they boo, he ties them up. As long as he thinks it's going to give him the edge in the fight to win. And you know what? Quite frankly, I agree with him. That's all he should care about. Nothing else. I think it's an interesting fight. I like the style of Benn because I'm more of that. I like that style. He's more conventional. He's tough. He's a good offensive fighter. He'll mix defense with offense. He'll move his head. I like that style. I like it more than the Eubank style, but it doesn't mean that Eubank can't be effective and efficient. He has been with his style. Now, as far as the weights, with this rehydration, here's my question. You told me about it. You told me that the contract's 160. There's a rehydration clause that Eubank can't come in over 170. Can't be more than 170. What does that mean? I want to know more than that. That I've been there. I've had fighters with these rehydration clauses. What they usually do is the next morning, you can't be more than 10 pounds over the contracted weight. But that's in the morning, 8 in the morning. Then you go and you eat. You continue to hydrate. You eat a couple more meals. By the time you get into the arena, you could have put on another 10, 15 pounds. That is what I want to know. When? I don't want to just know that they're telling me, oh, don't worry. He can't get more than 170. There's a rehydration clause. But when are you going to weigh him? Are you going to weigh him in the morning and that's it? It means nothing to me. Nothing. Advantage Eubank. But does it mean when he gets to the arena 2 hours before the fight, you're going to make him get on a scale and make sure he's not one? I think it's a little late then. What are you going to call the fight off?
I don't know how management could agree with that. How could you go along and allow your fighter to go along with a clause like that 2 hours before the fight? I would hope it's early in the morning.
Yeah, but if it is early in the morning, I hope it's not. See, I'm going to go against you, and I hate to go against you, because to me, then it's just for us to think something was done. It's just flash. It's just show. Because they say, oh, we protected the fighters. We made sure he couldn't get more than 170 pounds. But did you really protect them? Because there's another 12 hours before the fight. In those 12 or 15 hours, whatever it is, in those 15 hours from the morning to the fight, how much more weight's he going to put on? That's my concern. My concern is, hey, okay, he can't come in more than 10 pounds the next morning. But I want to know that the guy that gets in the ring, that ain't the guy getting in the ring, the guy that gets on the scale in the morning. That's my point. The guy who's getting in the ring with my smaller fighter is the guy who had 12 more, 15 more hours to continue eating and drinking. What does he weigh? I want to know what that guy weighs. Then it's real. Then you're looking out for the fighter. That is something that really can keep the bigger man from really being way too big.
But then to that point, then should we go back to same-day weigh-ins? Then it doesn't hurt the fighter the night before.
Because then a fighter, instead of always looking to have an edge, because you could do a weight cut, kind of like the MMA fighters. They do these unbelievable weight cuts. Unbelievable. But instead of saying, okay, I'm really, let's just say for argument's sake, I'm really a middleweight. I am. I'm a middleweight. I'm huge. I'm big. I'm Marvin Hagler. That's a good middleweight. Wow, that's a good one. I'm Marvin Hagler. But I want to fight at welterweight. So I devise a way of, for one day, just one day, I'm able to get down. I'm able to make that weight crash, make that weight cut and get in there. And then when I get in with the welterweight, by the time I put everything back on, I'm back to being a middleweight. I have an advantage, The only way you really eliminate that stuff from ever happening is do what they did in the old days. Where they had same-day weigh-ins. Because you had to be you weren't a middleweight getting on that scale and becoming a welterweight. No, you were a welterweight. You weren't doing that, because if you did do that, you weren't even getting to the fight that night. Somebody would have to carry you to the freaking ring. Because you'd be too weak. And you got to be strong when you get in there. So, yeah, day of. Actually, the premise was that this was safer. Give them time to rehydrate, give them time to get nutriment in. And in reality, it wasn't safer. You created situations where you had guys way too big in the ring the night of the fight. In reality, what they thought wasn't safer is safer, because you're making guys really fight at a weight that they were born to fight at.
Yeah, a lot to unpack here, a lot of questions to be answered, and the time is almost here. The UK fans been waiting a long time. This fight was supposed to happen a few years ago, and Benn had some issues with the anti-doping board. The fight did not happen, but it's happening. Like you said, Eubank has been the lead promoter. The egg heard around the world. The bad blood is for real. I can't wait to watch this one. So we will find out soon enough. But with that being said, it sounds like you are going to go with Benn. Is that your winner, your prediction?
All I said, Bud, I didn't give you everything, Bud. I wait for, you know what I mean? All I'm saying is I like his style. Hey, look, I like he's younger. I like that he's hasn't learned how to lose, as I always say, in the industry. All of that. Uh, I've seen Eubank where he got knocked out one time against Liam Smith, and when he did, it was because Liam Smith, aggressive fighter, was able to get in close and take advantage of some of his vulnerabilities that are harder to take advantage at a distance. Catch him with his hands down. Catch him, because Eubank is a guy who's more of a natural sort of athletic guy that his technique is not going to be as buttoned up as Benn, who's more conventional. He's going to be anything but conventional. He's going to drop his hands, going to throw from, and he's going to do it and depend on his reflexes, his timing, his range, that he can do it before you get close to him. And there's vulnerabilities to that. There's flaws to that. Listen, I give you, I like him. I like him as a fighter. I give him credit. But when you fight that way, you drop your hands to throw the uppercut. You pull back with your hands down. You look to control that space, like I said, and take advantage of being quicker than the other guy before he gets close to you. When you do that and you don't have the buttoned-up technique, the conventional technique of hands up and not pulling back, if a guy gets close to you, now you pay a price for it. Now you get caught because your hands are down. Now you get caught because you're standing up. Now you get caught because you're pulling back. But it takes a guy who's aggressive and is aggressive in a smart enough way and a developed enough way to not let your strengths play out on him before he gets close. To not allow you to use your strengths that I just described, being quick hands and good punch on the outside. It has to be an aggressive fighter who can get in safely. And then once they're in safely, if they don't get tied up, if they're prepared for the stuff that Eubank will do, like tie him up, and then make it go back to the outside and take a risk all over again. He'll tie you up, not let you do what you want on the inside, and then go outside and make you take the risk all over again, hope that this time he catches you. If you got an aggressive fighter who can get in and not get tied up, he can take advantage of the things that are there to take advantage of with a Eubank, who likes to work on his athleticism, but will drop his hands, will pull back, will be vulnerable, has been vulnerable, was vulnerable that one time against Liam Smith. That's how I see Eubank having to win the fight. Not Eubank, Benn having to win the fight if I was going to take Benn. I'm not ready to take him.
You're on the fence. This is unlike you.
No, I'm on the fence. I'm going to say maybe the bigger guy. Maybe the bigger guy who is a little bit more athletic, can catch, who is probably mentally more prepared because of his father, because of his own temperament being more similar to his father's, maybe more mentally prepared for the theatrics, for the stage, for the enormity of this stage, for the bright lights, for all the stuff that's going on. I think Benn, I like Benn. I think he's handled it really well. I see nothing where he's shown me a weakness. But Eubank might be better suited for this kind of environment, to handle this kind of environment that's going to be at play. It's going to be at play. And I think it's going to, if he gets his way, he's going to do two things. And part of it is going to be to make it ugly. He's going to look to catch Benn taking chances, and then he's going to be an octopus. And if it's that, the fans won't be happy. They won't be thrilled because it's not the most pleasing fight to watch. But Eubank, at the end of the day, might be happy because it'll be an effective strategy.
Yeah.
I didn't say who's going to win. You like the way I left that?
Yeah, I'm going to just put it out there. I'm going to go with Benn. I think Benn's going to win. I think the younger, hungrier, twitchier guy who's been beyond disrespected with the egg to his face is going to close the gap. And I like his chances. I'm favoring Benn. But that was a thorough breakdown.
I can see that. No,
And
I could be right with you with that Benn. But I ain't letting you know. But I could be right with you. I can see it.
Well, we will find out on Saturday night, April 26th. Again, we'll put up a message and a reminder, but please join us. Listen to Teddy's live stream commentary. And before we go, any final words before signing off today?
Yeah, the fans would hate me to be in the fence, so I'm going to give a winner. I'll say Benn.
Oh,
How's that for
I had to
fun?
twist your arm a little bit.
How's that? Nah, I don't know, maybe, because you always influence me in a good way to be better. And I wasn't being better. I was taking the easy way out. And then you reminded me, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. Even if we're wrong, so what? We put ourselves out there.
Well, we shall find out soon. Please join us for the live stream next Saturday. And we will be back to our regular airing of our podcast episodes next week on Monday. Guys, have a great week. See you next week.